Hi, class. So I wanted to be able to present my data project that I'm working on. I'm using the content of this course to also work on a project that works for me at my site in my classroom and my grade level this year for next year. So I chose to do data on the CASP and share the 16-17 results from my grade level to convince people to look at their interventions. And I couldn't be there today. I had some family issues, so I'm growing as a person and trying to learn the screen task to be able to share with you, even though that I'm not there. Okay, so these are the results of the CASP from the 2016-2017 school year. And the CASP is an end-of-the-year summative assessment of the California state standards. It's given once per year in the grades 3 through 8th and 10th grades. It's actually 11th grade. And is administered by a classroom teacher or trained staff. Trained staff for us at our site is usually for students who have accommodations written into their IEP, especially if they have separate setting and they cannot be with other students at that time and have a true separate setting. That's when we start engaging some other staff and training them to be able to help with the administrations. It has 4 main sections. When it's given, they're in blocks of language arts performance task, math, and math performance task. The results are public and are shared with the parents over the summer for the students' individual scores, that is. The results are reported in levels, and I'll show you. Not met, nearly met, met or exceeded in terms of application of the state standards. Results are analyzed for potential areas of growth and any trends at the site, grade, and teacher levels. Students who do exceptionally well are recognized at an assembly at the end of the year for the previous academic year. And the data focus today is for 3rd grade for the 2016-2017 school year. I wanted to show the results overall at our site. We're elementary K-5, so I pulled the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade to just show overall before I pull out the 3rd grade. So this is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for language arts. And you can see the bands on the bottom: standard, not met, met, nearly met, or exceeded. Those are the colors for each, and those are the blocks with showing the percentage of each level for each grade. That one is for English language arts, and this is for math. Pulling out 3rd grade for the 16-17 school year, I have this. Oh, I don't know if you can see the full. There you go. We had 35% not met, 31% nearly met, 15% met, and 18% exceeded the standard in English language arts. And for math, we had 30.4% not met, 27.62 nearly met, 27.62 met, and 14.29 exceeded. So I wanted to talk about this. Most of the time we get the question about how can we improve our scores, If you're looking at that, you're noticing almost half on both, over half on math, I think, are not, or at nearly or not meeting standards. So that's disturbing, if you're the teacher of record and those are your students, and also if you're a parent or anyone watching. But I think it's important also to look at the strengths that we have, and I didn't show it here because the previous year's test was pilot, and the year before that was on paper. But we do have a trend in our site that 3rd is actually strong, and the same group of students tested in 4th. At the end of 4th, their 4th grade CASP results are lower, both in English language arts and math, than they were in 3rd. And I know it's not the exact same students. Might have some who have moved or some who have come in from somewhere, but that student body, tested again the following year, do have a lower, and there's lots of reasons we can talk about that, but it's not that we're totally, there are some strengths that we can build on. So I want to talk about what can we do and how can we build on our strengths. And one of the things I want to talk about with my people is looking at what we do well, which I mentioned. Look at the percent that succeeded and look at the previous year comparison, third and fourth comparison. And then let's look at our interventions and let's look at some training. New pieces this year have come out for the CAS, including the interim assessments. Interim assessments are a shorter version of the CAS that can be given throughout the year to really gauge student learning of the content at the time. So, for example, we're just going to finish up in measurement and data, then I could give the measurement and data IAB. The students, the IABs before, we did not get results from that, and we were not able to share any questions. So it's sort of not like we should print out something or screenshot something to give ourselves a key and to look at what students were doing as they were doing it or anything like that. We would not get results at all. And now there is a component of CAS where you can go in and see the results of IABs you have taken. And you can see down to specific items what students were struggling with, which will help you to know where to focus your instruction. And they're smaller. It's not like taking the entire CAS, it's just seeing where their competency is in that area at that time. And those are helpful, but I feel a lot of teachers at my site aren't aware or don't know how to get their results, or are viewing the system but not actually taking IAB, so they might be in there showing students different options once they're in the CAS, for prep, but they're not actually giving them practice taking an IAB. I'm not sure. So I think some training would help with that. And then, of course, interventions, both for the higher end where they can be enriched and for the lower side where we're seeing students at not met or nearly met. Because right now interventions at our site are very all over the board. I really feel that we can take a look at interventions, how we're placing students, to make sure, and also to look at getting ourselves consistent. And looking at if there are two needs with our current model, what do we do? Because currently interventions are after school interventions and administered by the teacher, the classroom teacher in that grade level. So it might not be their own teacher, but it's a teacher in that grade level. And everyone does something different, and all grades do something different. So teachers amongst a grade level do something different, and across grades things are done differently. Not even just in terms of what is that standard or what is that skill that's being worked on, but sort of just what they do for an intervention. All are totally different. And so I think getting calibrated from the very least with your grade level team with data that how you're going to place your student in an intervention with data that comes from multiple sources. Because I have had students in intervention who got there because they scored low one day on a quiz for math or something, and it's not a reflective of their ability at all. They had a bad day or it was a bad question, and you're sitting there wondering why they're in there, especially if you have limited seats and someone else could be in there or something like that. So really looking at how the needs are identified from the first place, making sure that there's multiple sources saying the same thing, and that in our model, the way it is now, that the highest need comes first. In the current model, like I said, if someone has reading needs and math needs, we have to choose. So far, we're going with the highest need, and the same is true for ELD or reading specialist. If a student is EL, but they also need the reading specialist, which is often the case, we have to choose if they're a lower level EL, that we have to work it out so they can also see the reading specialist. But if they're a higher level EL, then there's not an option because there's not a time block for that. So it's tough. Some strategists would say, let's go with the middle, the nearly met, and give them interventions to at least get them met. I don't know, I'm for inclusion, so I think maybe the highest need first, and maybe looking at some other differentiation in the classroom for the middle. I'm not sure. Some comments about the grade scores the way they are now on the CAS were that it was the computerized version. The previous year, even some of the features for some of the classes that did take it online were not working yet. So it was tough to really interpret even the results that we did get and that sort of thing. And so I can't go back to the 15-16 or 14-15 comparison for 16-17 because of it's not the computer test, and 1 year of it was sort of like a botched year. So going forward, I find this a great opportunity because we can start looking now at this year's and next year's, and last year's and this year's, and that sort of thing. So I think it's sort of like perfect timing as these changes have come in for us to start looking at this. And I mentioned before the previous IABs did not produce results, so we were taking them and they were getting practice in sort of how the test was formatted and maybe the types of questions that would be on the test, but not anything that told us where they exactly were. So let's say our instruction is not to CASP level, and then they take CASP IAB, we don't get the results, so we still don't know where they are in terms of CASP. Even if we might have known where they were in terms of what we were teaching, was what we were teaching to the level, depth of knowledge, and etc. rigor that CASP is. Even, unsure. You have to really take a look. So, also the scores that come back to us are reported in groups of standards. You're seeing even on this report ELA and math only. I think there is a little bit more detailed report that comes to our site admins, and I've seen some because we were reflecting with them as teachers, but it's still not that specific to where you can trace something back to a strand itself. So I've been thinking on ways to be able to gauge this. So if the scores reported in terms of reflecting on your CASP data as a teacher to improve instruction for the following year or something, it has been a little difficult, and you really have to start looking at just yourself and your instruction in terms of the standards themselves, and filling in gaps from the curriculum to the standard and so forth. It's just hard work on your part. I see the CASP now, at least with results for the IAB, is getting a little better about how can I teach or reflect on data from CASP. You're really going to have to pull data from somewhere else or be looking at your instruction. And then the approach of depth versus breadth for the teachers, because a lot of people are trying to follow the curriculum exactly, and it's kind of a little shallow compared to CASP or standards, and the curriculum itself is interpreted by the producer of the curriculum what the standard was meaning. And so there have been times in my curriculum where I have found, hey, this lesson is not even reflective of its own objective according to the curriculum, let alone that standard. And I've had to pull things out or put new things in. So just sort of bringing awareness to that and helping develop teachers in their instruction. Coupled with the targeted instructions I'm talking about, where the interventions are targeted to the student needs, and also that the student, at least the grade level team, is on the same page as far as what's being offered in intervention, I think will really help. And I'd like to follow up, not just at the end of the next year when CASP comes, but at the IABs that we hopefully people are administering in their classrooms as they go, and looking at the formatives and summatives from each intervention that we're offering once we're calibrated, because we can have a pre and a post sort of system is what we have right now, but with everyone, even that doesn't tell us a lot, but with everyone doing something different, so that a student is in an intervention for 3 weeks with one teacher that does one thing and 3 weeks with another teacher that does another thing that's supposed to be targeting the same skill or the same topic, is just, it doesn't help us very much, and I don't think it's helping the student very much as it is either. So once we get everybody calibrated, everybody trained, I think we could look at the IABs, the intervention results, and look at that next CASP to see if anything that we did made a difference, especially because right now all of our adoptions are in place and they've been in place. All of our computer programs are in place and they've been in place. So, I mean, I'm not saying the only variable would have been the intervention, but it would be kind of close. In terms of no one started a new curriculum or some grade has a different curriculum. Nothing like that is going on at the moment. So between the new CASP changes, how stable our curriculum and our policies and procedures have been, so far last 2-3 years, I think it's prime time to implement some of these interventions and look at how it affects CASP. So that is my presentation on this data overview for my larger project. The question was, how can we build on our strengths and address the CASP scores students are receiving. I think interventions are one of the ways, and then I'll continue on with ideas about intervention. Thank you guys for allowing me to present, even though I'm a distant student today. Thank you all.